Somewhere in a quiet suburb outside of Dallas, a 34-year-old man named Marcus is sitting at a kitchen table that still has the stickers on it because he can't afford the chairs to match. He's looking at a spreadsheet he's been tweaking for 3 hours, moving $50 from the groceries column to the car insurance column, like he's playing a high-stakes game of Tetris where every move leads to a game over. Marcus makes $82,000 a year. On paper, he is the American success story. He has the degree, the white-collar job, and the sensible sedan. But as he stares at the screen, the math is shouting at him. His rent just went up by 9%, his health insurance premium jumped another $60, and for the first time in his adult life, Marcus realizes that he isn't just tight this month. He is mathematically incapable of living the life he was told he could afford. He's doing everything right, and he's still drowning in a sea of red ink. This isn't a video about Marcus being bad with money. This is a video about why the very concept of a budget has become a gaslighting tool used to hide a brutal systemic reality that almost nobody in power is willing to say out loud. The math has been rigged, and today we're going to look at the receipts. Before we dive into the numbers that are currently gutting the middle class, I want to ask you something important. If you felt that same pit in your stomach that Marcus felt, that feeling that no matter how much you earn, the goalposts keep moving, hit that like button right now. It helps this message reach more people who are currently blaming themselves for a system they didn't create. And honestly, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below with the one expense that has absolutely nuked your budget in the last 12 months. Whether it's rent, groceries, or childcare, let's start a real conversation in the comments about what's actually happening on the ground. If you're tired of the generic financial advice that doesn't account for the world we actually live in, subscribe to the channel. We're building a community here of people who prefer the uncomfortable truth over comfortable lies, and we have a lot of ground to cover to help you navigate what's coming next. The reason Marcus is drowning, and the reason you might be too, starts with a lie we've all been told since we got our first paychecks. It's the golden rule of personal finance, the 50-30-20 rule. You know the one. Spend 50% of your income on needs, 30% on wants, and save 20%. It sounds so simple. It's clean, it's balanced, and it's a complete fantasy in 2026. This rule was popularized in the early 2000s based on economic data from a world that no longer exists. Back then, the average rent-to-income ratio was a manageable slice of the pie. But today, the needs category, rent, utilities, basic transport, and insurance, isn't 50% of the average worker's budget anymore. In most major metros, it's closer to 70 or 80%. When your needs swallow your wants and your savings whole, you aren't budgeting anymore. You are just managing an inevitable decline in your standard of living. Let's look at the actual math of 2026. The median rent in the United States has hit a level that would have seemed like a typo just 5 years ago. We are living through the aftermath of a housing supply crunch that met a corporate buy-up of single-family homes, creating a perfect storm for the renter. But it's not just the rent itself. It's the budget creep. In 2026, you aren't just paying for 4 walls and a roof. You're paying for the technology fee for the internet you didn't choose. You're paying valet trash fees because the landlord found a way to outsource a basic service and charge you a 300% markup for it. You're paying pet rent for a dog that has never held a job or utilized a single amenity in the building. These aren't just small fees. They are the death by 1,000 cuts that make a reasonable rent price functionally impossible to maintain. The middle-class trap is real, and it's fueled by a phenomenon I call insolvent success. This is the point where you earn enough money to be ineligible for any kind of social safety net, but not enough to actually build wealth. Think about the success mindset influencers who tell you that passive income is the only way out. They tell you to invest in the market, to buy the dip, to build a portfolio. But how do you build a portfolio when your rent is 45% of your take-home pay? How do you create passive income when your car insurance just went up 20% because parts and labor costs have skyrocketed? The advice isn't wrong. It's just irrelevant to someone whose primary financial struggle is the cost of existing between the hours of 9:00 p.m. and 7:00 a.m. We have to talk about the latte fallacy. For 20 years, financial gurus have told us that if we just stopped buying $5 coffees, we'd all be millionaires. It was a convenient lie because it shifted the blame from the system to the individual. It made your financial failure a matter of personal discipline. But let's run the real math on that. If you skip a $5 latte every single day for a year, you save about $1,800. In 2026, that wouldn't even cover the average rent increase for a single year in a city like Charlotte or Phoenix. You could skip every latte, every avocado toast, and every Netflix subscription, and you still wouldn't be able to bridge the gap created by a housing market that is untethered from local wages. The math nobody wants to admit is that you cannot frugality push your way out of a macroeconomic shift. This is where the escalation happens. When the budget fails, people don't just give up, they turn to debt. In 2026, credit card balances have hit all-time highs, but it's not because people are out buying Gucci bags, it's because they are using plastic to fill the gap between their paycheck and their power bill. We've seen a massive surge in buy now, pay later services for everyday essentials. When you are financing your groceries over 4 easy payments, your budget hasn't just failed, it has collapsed. And yet, the narrative remains that the economy is strong because spending is up. Spending is up because the cost of survival is up, not because people are thriving. This is the brutal reality of the middle-class trap. You are working harder than ever to stay exactly where you are, or worse, to slide backward more slowly. Now, I want to pause here because this is where a lot of people start to feel hopeless, but understanding the math is the first step toward reclaiming your power. If this breakdown is hitting home, if you're finally realizing that the math you've been using was never meant to work for you, make sure you've subscribed. We are going to go even deeper into the specific strategies to fight back against this, but you need to see the full picture first. This community is about taking the wool off our eyes so we can actually plan for a future that exists, not the one they sold us in 1998. Let's look at a new character in our story. Meet Sarah and David. They are a dual-income couple in Denver, Colorado. Combined, they make $140,000 a year. 10 years ago, they would have been the kings of the neighborhood. They would have had a house with a yard and a college fund for their kids. Today, they are rent-locked. They can't afford to buy a home because the mortgage on a starter house in their zip code would be $6,000 a month at current interest rates. But they also can't afford to save for a down payment because their rent is $3,500. They are stuck in a cycle of high-income poverty. They have the 6-figure salary, but they have the lifestyle of someone earning half that much a decade ago. The insight here is that the standard of living has been decoupled from income. We used to believe that if you hit a certain salary milestone, you unlocked a certain level of comfort. That link has been severed. In 2026, wealth isn't determined by what you earn. It's determined by when you entered the housing market. If you bought a home in 2015, you are wealthy. If you are trying to rent or buy in 2026, you are struggling, regardless of the number on your W-2. This is the hidden viral factor of the modern economy. It's a 2-tier system where the winners are those who locked in their cost of living before the math broke, and the losers are everyone else trying to play by the old rules. So, what is the solution? If the old budget is dead, what replaces it? First, we have to move from defensive budgeting to offensive math. Defensive budgeting is trying to cut your way to success. It's the latte skipping. It's the coupons. Offensive math is recognizing that the only way to beat a rigged game is to change your exposure to it. This might mean making the radical choice that the wealthy mindset gurus hate. Moving. Not just to a cheaper apartment, but to one of the remaining math havens in the country. There are still pockets of the U.S. where the rent-to-income ratio hasn't completely detached from reality. We're talking about places like Oklahoma City, Louisville, or parts of the Midwest. For a lot of people, the most significant financial move they can make in 2026 isn't an investment in the S&P 500. It's a U-Haul rental to a city where their salary actually buys a life. The second part of the solution is aggressive negotiation. For years, renters have acted like the price on the website is the law. But in late 2026, we are seeing a strange phenomenon, a supply blip. There was a surge in apartment completions in early 2024. And in some markets, landlords are actually getting nervous. They won't tell you this, but they are offering concessions again. If you are renewing a lease right now, you have a window of leverage that didn't exist 2 years ago and likely won't exist in 2027 when the construction pipeline dries up. You need to walk into that office with a list of every vacancy in a 3-block radius. You need to ask for 2 months free or a waived parking fee. This isn't just about saving $50, it's about clawing back a piece of your budget from the algorithmic pricing models that are trying to squeeze you dry. We also have to talk about financial freedom in a way that isn't a cliche. In the old world, financial freedom meant retirement at 65 with a gold watch. In 2026, financial freedom means geographic decoupling. If you can work remotely, your greatest asset isn't your 401k, it's your ability to earn a coastal salary while living in a low-cost county. This is the passive income of the modern era, the money you save by not paying the success tax of living in a hyperinflated city. The middle-class trap is only a trap if you stay in the cage they built for you. But let's be real for a second. Moving isn't always an option. You have families, you have roots, you have lives. So if you're staying, you have to embrace community economics. The era of the rugged individualist who does it all on their own is mathematically over for the middle class. We are seeing a massive return to multi-generational living, not as a sign of failure, but as a strategic financial choice. In 2026, a 26-year-old living with their parents isn't failing. They are the only ones with a positive net worth. They are building the capital that will allow them to jump the gap when the market eventually corrects, if it ever does. We have to stop the shame cycle. If your budget is failing, it's because the cost of the standard American life has exceeded the value of the standard American wage. Reinforcing this truth is vital. You are not a failure for finding the current world unaffordable. The people who are making it right now are often doing so because of a hidden advantage, a low-interest mortgage from 2020, an inheritance, or a debt-free education. When you compare your middle to their highlight reel, you are comparing your math to their miracle. The reality of 2026 rent is that the system is designed to keep you in a state of work-to-rent servitude. The only way out is to see the walls of the trap clearly. As we look toward the end of 2026 and into 2027, the projections aren't pretty. Construction starts have cratered. Interest rates remain a hurdle for new developments. The supply blip we're enjoying right now is a temporary eye of the storm. If you don't use this moment to stabilize your finances, to negotiate your rent, or to relocate, you will be caught in the next wave of increases that everyone in the industry knows is coming. This is the brutal reality. The math isn't going to fix itself. There is no politician or policy on the immediate horizon that is going to undo a decade of housing undersupply overnight. You are the only one who can save your budget, but you can't do it using 1980s logic. I want you to take a hard look at your numbers tonight. Not with shame, but with the cold, clinical eye of a strategist. If your needs are over 60% of your income, you are in the danger zone. If you are using debt to pay for utilities, the alarm is sounding. It's time to stop trying to budget your way through a crisis and start making the big, uncomfortable moves that the math demands. Whether that's a new job, a new city, or a new living arrangement, the success mindset for 2026 is one of radical adaptation. If this video helped you realize that you aren't the problem, the math is, please share it with one person who is currently stressed about their finances. Sometimes just knowing that it's a systemic issue can be the breath of fresh air someone needs to stop spiraling. And don't forget to check out the next video where I'm going to give you the exact word-for-word script to use with your landlord to get those rent concessions before the window closes. We're going to walk through the 3 most effective asks that are landing right now in cities across the country. The system might be rigged, but that doesn't mean you can't learn how to play the game better. Remember, the 30% rule is a ghost. The 50-30-20 rule is a memory. Your budget isn't failing you. The world those rules were built for has passed away. It's time to build a new set of rules based on the brutal reality of today. You have the skills, you have the work ethic, and now you have the math. It's time to use it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one where we start taking the fight back to the landlords. The reality of 2026 is that the middle class is being squeezed out of the very cities they build and maintain. We see it in the data, we see it in the homelessness spikes, and we see it in the quiet desperation of people like Marcus. But desperation is a fuel if you know how to ignite it. Use this information to stop the bleed. Stop believing the lie that your unnecessary spending is the culprit. Focus on the big pillars: housing, transport, insurance. If you can't fix those, the rest of the budget is just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. We are living through a historic shift in how humans inhabit space and trade their time for shelter. It is uncomfortable, it is unfair, and it is the reality. But by being part of this community, by looking at the numbers nobody wants to admit, you are already ahead of 90% of the population who is still trying to skip their way to wealth one latte at a time. Stay sharp, keep your data close, and never let a broken system tell you that you are a broken person. The math is true, and once you accept that truth, you can finally start to move forward. See you in the comments, and see you in the next video.